Yes, I am alive. I am very sorry for disappearing again, but yeah, I've not had a great few months, so I just couldn't get back into my routine with recording, but that's going to soon change. What I was originally planning at some point soon was to start Baldur's Gate 3, but um, got sort of caught by surprise by the fact that Death Stranding 2 is coming out. I had no idea it was coming out. I haven't watched any of the trailers, but I'm just going to start Death Stranding 2 around release because I really enjoyed the first game. But what I wanted to do, I thought it might be a cool idea just to reflect a little bit, just on the channel, on the playthroughs, on everything. Just because I've had a bit of a break, and it's nice to sort of think about why I started the channel and just reflect on a few of the experiences. So what I'll do is I'll just sort of try and talk for a couple of minutes about each playthrough, my memories of it, just as just to have a think of, just because your opinion of things changes over time. Some things you become more affectionate towards, like the memory of certain experiences, and some things change a bit, don't they, with a bit of time. But it's interesting just thinking about starting the channel in the first place, because I love watching Let's Plays. I still do, of other people, obviously. And yeah, just thinking about the format and what it was like starting it and the differences between it. But I still think that the Let's Play format is still a very pure format to me. It's difficult to know what to compare it to, because that so much other stuff on YouTube is trying to be much more well presented or well edited or commercialized, and I think that the Let's Play format is still very pure. I think that the Let's Play format is very much, I don't know, to me it feels kind of like a bit like a book club, where in terms of like how you interact with people in the comments, and you're like on an even footing, really, with other people who've played the game or people who are experiencing it with you through your playthrough. And I think that's what I really like. It's that, just that sharing of the experience and sharing of just really cool artistic artistic games. I've got to stop saying experiences. I think I've said it 3 times already. And yeah, I think it's been a mostly positive experience doing the channel, and I think that it definitely changes the way you play games a little bit. I think that one of the only negatives, really, I suppose, and I'll get into this maybe when we talk about certain playthroughs, is, I guess, the one negative you have with doing Let's Plays of any game is you do feel the pressure to really enjoy the game, to really get into it. And I always try my hardest to get the most out of whatever genre, whatever kind of story, whatever type of game it is. But it's unlikely that someone's going to watch like a full Let's Play, particularly of a longer game, of someone who's not enjoying themselves, right? Or they don't appreciate certain things in the game. Because chances are, if you're watching the Let's Play, you love the game yourself. Maybe. So I felt that pressure in a few of these playthroughs where I probably wasn't enjoying it. And maybe if I was playing it without the playthrough, without recording it, I maybe would have stopped. But that's probably the only negative, really. I think that for the most part, I've had a great time. I've really enjoyed sort of just the discussions. It sort of really, it adds to the escapism for me. Talking to people about how they've been through certain games. But yeah, I mean, obviously the first playthrough I did isn't on the channel anymore, which I suppose is a bit sad. So yeah, we'll start off with that playthrough, which was Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. So I've still got my Sekiro highlights video on the channel. And I took the playthrough down with the intention of re-uploading it, because obviously when I first started my channel and no one watched this playthrough, I didn't really know how to edit video at all, and it really showed here. Getting to grips with it all. My microphone was terrible. I don't know. I did it all wrong, and that's fine. But I just wanted to, because I still had the raw files. I wanted to re-upload it. But yeah, in terms of the game itself, but I lost a few of the episodes when I was installing some new stuff on my computer. I unplugged one of the SATA cables on one of my hard drives, and that's where it all was. So when I went to re-upload it, I couldn't find like the first 10 parts, which I have since found. So I will maybe at some point bring this back, because honestly, I think this is my favorite FromSoft game. It's just like a dance, and it feels so much more purposeful in the combat than so many of the other games, like compared to Elden Ring, and some of the marquee boss fights. Maybe not the Guardianate, but like the actual sword on sword fights, I just found exhilarating. And when you get in the rhythm of the parries, of the deflections, of the Mikiri counters, of everything, it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious, and that's why I really enjoyed it so much. So maybe I will try, and I still can't find episode 1 of this. I've got every other part that I've found on a few old hard drives and stuff. So maybe this will come back. I would like it to. So the playthrough after Sekiro, which I did re-upload in the same manner, was A Plague Tale: Innocence, and I loved this game. It was one of the most emotional playthroughs I think I've had. There were several moments that just had me that really affected me. I'll try not to spoil it if you've not watched it already. I suppose it's a bit of a weird thing about doing this reflection, but so I'm mostly going to be playing bits from part 1s and part 2s and stuff. But yeah, I'm getting a bit choked up thinking about it, because there was one in particular that I'm thinking of that I cut the episode short because I had to go and lie down and cry for a bit. Where yeah, it was such the sequel included, but we'll get to that later. They're such visceral experiences, and the soundtracks just are so guttural. They just hit you, even if you're not attached to certain characters. The way that it's framed, and it's perfect. The way the tragedy is, and I think that there's a third game that's maybe been announced. I can't remember. I don't tend to watch a lot of previews and trailers, but maybe you guys can tell me. But what are your memories of A Plague Tale? Like a really good, you'd call it like a double A game, right? Considering the budget of the studio. But yeah, I still listen to the soundtrack for this game. Really, really memorable. Yeah, and just completely unforgettable. Amicia and Hugo. Fantastic voice acting. Beautiful graphics as well. Really special game. So before I talk about Gris, these horrendous thumbnails from the beginning, God, makes me uncomfortable. But there's one playthrough that's completely missing. I don't even have the original video files for it. Is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. While it was a beautiful game, quite a harrowing experience, I really didn't like the game ultimately, and because I disliked it so much upon reflection, I just deleted the whole playthrough. There are four? No, 5. There are 4, 5. No, there's 4 missing playthroughs from my channel that I either deleted or intended to re-upload. No, it's 5 actually. It is 5. Sekiro, obviously, I plan to re-upload, so it wasn't any problem with the game. But Hellblade, I just thought that the portrayal of mental illness in it was just it was very textbook and everything, and how they were portraying the sort of schizophrenia and stuff, and that was something I spoke about throughout that playthrough. But I just felt like the lack of personal insight into Senua was really dehumanizing, and not in the sense that, you know, mental illness is dehumanizing in and of itself, but I just felt like it I just felt like it used it as in a way that a lot of horror games or horror films or whatever use mental asylums and that kind of portrayal of it. Ultimately, I think it leaned way too far into the mental illness horror trope than it did in highlighting the experience of mental illness. And ultimately, I didn't want to have, you know, that kind of thing represented on the channel ultimately. But Gris was a gorgeous game that I don't necessarily have too detailed of a memory of, other than just the music, really, and just the wonderful art style. It's weird how sometimes these games, you don't necessarily remember the moment-to-moment feeling of playing the game, but you remember like a general feeling of it just being like a very tight experience. I've got to stop saying the word experience. Being a very tight playthrough, like really well put together, beautifully presented, and very emotional all the way through. Like it was always teetering on the edge of just the general feel. I remember always felt so, yeah, like you were on the edge of tears, really, just with how everything came together. Yeah, lovely game. And now we get to one of my favourite playthroughs on the channel, or one that just was, I had a really wonderful time with all the way through, which is the first Life is Strange game. It was a fantastic mix of sort of like that coming of age story, a story of tortured friendships and tortured love stories, and the murder mystery element of it. It all, you know, and it being like a choice-based game, it all really coalesced perfectly in a way that, yeah, I don't think that they've really replicated in these kind of, you know, purely decision-based games. But I mean, a lot of, yeah, I mean, towards the end there was some really powerful moments, some really big choices that came together really well. I remember this game really fondly, and I don't know. I remember at the beginning it made me feel old, you know, playing through this sort of high school, college simulator type game. But the quality of the writing and the plot development pushed past that sort of early cringiness I felt very, very quickly. And yeah, Life is Strange is awesome. I know that this game has a huge fan base, so I understand why. And then we get to Journey, which was, I had a lovely time with this game. Fantastic music, beautiful art style, just, yeah, a glorious world to pass through, to glide through. I had a really lovely moment in the game where I had no idea that there was like a passive multiplayer element to the game, and someone just popped up, and I was like, "Oh, is this a player?" I had no idea, and yeah, it was wonderful, really. I've got a few games on my list that, you know, going back to some of these shorter indies, because sometimes your channel, it happens to all Let's Play channels. When you play a longer game, it feels like your whole channel's dedicated to that game for such a long period of time. But Journey was awesome. I had a bit of a weird experience with this. I think it was last year, where in the comments on this, there was another YouTuber, I think it's a Twitch streamer, who was watching the playthrough and commenting on each video. And then there's only like, what, 6 videos in this playlist, but and then the last video, they didn't like something that I did at the end. It's the first time I'm playing the game. I don't know what the perfect ending is, and they left like such a horrible comment at the end on the last video, like such a scathing comment. Like, you know, I'm reasonably thick-skinned, but sometimes people get like just irk you a little bit. But particularly from someone who has their own channel with their own playthroughs on. I can't even remember what her name was now, because she deleted all her comments. But it was just like, it was like an issue with how I played the ending of the game, and it was like, well, it's my first time playing it anyway. But anyway, Journey in general, amazing game. And then we get to The Last of Us Part 1, I suppose, as it's called now, which was, it's a game with great characters and a great story, right? I think that it's a game that sort of stands on those pillars, like on their own. It's strange because I don't know if I should talk about Part 2 now, but my experience with Part 2 definitely has affected my opinion of the first game a little bit, just because I had quite a negative. Well, no, yeah, I don't like the second game. I've got to say, I don't like it. My opinion of it is anyway, but I think I try not to let that affect my opinion of Part 1, because Part 1 just has stellar characters and the relationships between the characters, and it's so tightly woven together, and the characters just have great depth. I don't think that the setting or the plot or the gameplay are particularly good, but because the characters and the performances were so good, that's what you're there for, right? And the relationships between them, the struggles between them, are fantastic, right? And I try not to let. Well, we'll talk about Part 2 later, but I still think that the ending to Part 1 is part of the problem with Part 2. I think that the ending is so divisive, so deliberately divisive. I don't think it. I don't know. I still think that the whole ending of Part 1. I've got to talk about the ending. I still think the ending to Part 1 doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest. I still think that the way that the Firefly Doctors treated Ellie is too convenient. It's there to progress the plot. It's just a plot device, and ultimately, I think that that's what makes the second game so difficult to justify in terms of the direction it goes, is that the ending to this game is not as well written as the rest of the characters and the story and everything else. It's just too convenient, and I don't think there's any way that a group of doctors who were educated in the old world, right? So, when people are doctors, morality is a huge part of it. There's no way, I don't think there's any way that a group of doctors would just carve up a child for some sort of fairy tale cure that might not even exist. And that's ultimately, I think, what bleeds into the second game a lot, but I don't think it doesn't cloud the rest of the game, but the rest of the first game. But yeah, that's still my general opinion, is that, yeah, great characters, ending is not very good, but the whole journey and the characters along the way are fantastic. Now, I don't necessarily have too much memory of playing Abzu, but this, I guess I was sort of trying to be on a similar sort of kick to Journey, where it's sort of a calming explorative game, where, yeah, it's just very enjoyable to move through the game, and there's a sort of a message about your attitude to how certain species get portrayed, and I think there's a whole thing sort of with the sharks in the game. How sharks are portrayed as like a menacing presence in most media, and not really true, in terms of they're very important for the ecosystem underwater. And yeah, really great physics, because underwater sections in video games are generally not well liked, but the whole game is underwater, and that has to work, doesn't it? And yeah, really enjoyable game. And then we get to what I have to say is probably my first really sort of negative playthrough that I had, and that's Life is Strange Before the Storm. I've got to be honest, guys, like I hated this game. I hate it. I still hate it. I just think what's that? I can't even remember her name now. Is it Rachel? I can't remember, but she's just an awful person, an awful character, and it ruined the whole game for me. Like, I hated it. I think that like the people who like maybe people who'd subscribed on off the back of the first game and watched my playthrough of this probably never watched anything again, because this is what I mentioned before about the pressure to love a game is very difficult when you're doing a let's play, and I try my hardest to just immerse myself because I want to enjoy the game. I just could not get on board with. I forgot. I'm sure it's Rachel. Rachel. I can't remember, but she was the worst. What on earth was Chloe thinking? Yeah, I wish I would have only played Life is Strange Part 1. That was my overriding feeling when I finished this, was like, I should not have played this. I know it got described to me as being fan service, but I don't even think it was that. I mean, yeah. I don't want to be too harsh, but yeah, I really do not have fond memories of this game. One thing I meant to ask guys at the start was, I mean, what playthrough did you discover my channel with? Was it something like a one-stop shop? Were you just interested in that game? Did you watch more? I'm just interested to know, right? I'm just trying to reflect on, just the channel as a whole. Now we get to one of the missing playthroughs, and that is the Stanley Parable. Now, I really enjoyed this. It was a one-shot, I think. Yeah, 2-hour playthrough. I uploaded in one go. Now, like I said, I'm reasonably thick-skinned with comments and stuff, but sometimes things just really rub you the wrong way, and I generally didn't quite like some of the tone in the comments on this playthrough in general. While I really enjoyed the game, it was a really cool really cool. What's the right word here? Just ever evolving journey through the game. But just the tone of some of the comments really wound me up. It was just really patronising. But there was just one guy in particular that I was like, right, I'll sack this. After I read the comment, I replied to him in anger, which you shouldn't do. I generally don't do. But I just deleted it. I was like, well, I just had enough. And as a result of that, I deleted the other game that these guys made. I had a playthrough of that as well. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a really good game. I had a great time with it. Most of the people who, but I just think sometimes a game just has the wrong audience for you, and people like to try and, I don't know, they think that they have, I don't know. People think they have a more fuller understanding of things sometimes, and if they do, I like engaging with that. But it was just some of the tone of the comments on this playthrough just rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe I should have left it up. Well, I should have. I regret deleting this. I could re-upload it, I suppose, but the microphone quality still irks me. And then as a consequence of that, I deleted the beginner's guide playthrough as well. Yeah. I can be a little temperamental with things like that, knee-jerk reactions, and same sort of thing. But I regret deleting these two playthroughs. I could still re-upload them. Maybe you guys could convince me to. I don't know. The microphone quality is so bad that I would have a hard time respecting myself for re-uploading them. I don't know. We'll see. And now we get to, honestly, one of the best games ever made in terms of story, I think, and that's What Remains of Edith Finch. This game had a real effect on me, such a tangible effect on me. It's difficult to describe. It was such a melancholic roller coaster of a game, and the Lewis's story is, I mean, I can't even play through that again. I can't watch through that again. I find that so difficult. That's the most. I think that is the most emotional I've ever been playing a game. I think was Lewis's story, and then the whole ending, how it wrapped up. I did have audio problems with this, which annoys me as well. I had no clue about sort of balancing audio and different audio channels and stuff that I do now, which means I can do more in post. But I recorded them all in one audio channel for this, which was another annoyance. But yeah, the game. Yeah, What Remains of Edith Finch is just, it's a masterpiece. I still hate the term walking simulator, but in terms of, it's like, I don't know what a better term for it would be, I suppose, but just more of a passive experience, right? Story-based exploration game. Yeah, the house is just, it's a character in and of itself. Everybody should play this game, I think. Even if you don't like this style of game, I still think you should experience this. It's very powerful, very powerful. And now we get, unfortunately, to another missing playthrough. God, these are all happening in quite quick succession here. I've not done this for a long time. And that's NieR Automata. I can't really justify removing this playthrough because I really like this game. I love this game. But I think it was during the point where when I was playing The Last of Us Part 2 and just before I played Ghost of Tsushima, I was considering not bothering with the channel anymore because I had such a negative experience with The Last of Us Part 2 and the comments section and just the whole dialogue around the game I just found so vapid that I thought about just deleting the channel or just stopping uploading because I wasn't enjoying it. Like I really disliked the experience of The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of the comment section being so argumentative. But that when I played, obviously I played this game well before that. My experience of playing through the game and the people who were sort of watching each upload as it was sort of coming up was really great, and it's an unbelievable story in this game. One of the best written sci-fi stories I think you'll come across. The combat is fantastic. It's sharp, responsive, complex. Has different, and it's an amazing game. However, I do think that the fan base. What happened was after I finished the playthrough, some other people started watching it, and the comments. You know when people comment on stuff as if I can't read it, as if I'm not there. As if like someone's trying to talk about you while you're in the room, as if you're not there. That's what it felt like. I feel like the fan base of this game, or the core fan base, the hardcore fan base, whatever you want to call them, are a little bit gatekeepy. And I did have some gripes with the game. They weren't gripes that caused me to dislike. I still think it's a fantastically written game, and the gameplay is really well done. But there were certain aesthetic choices and certain things to do with the ending, like the Route D ending. I hated. And I didn't delete my save data at the end, and people had a massive problem with that. And I was just like, I didn't think the game had sort of earned that kind of ending, in my opinion. I preferred the other endings massively. And, certain aesthetic choices I didn't really like, to do with the character design, the costume design. I just thought it was a bit dull. Not dull, but the costume designs and stuff, I just think it was a bit immature. I don't know what it is. I didn't really like the art style at times. People didn't like it when I said that. And I put a lot of effort into some of the themes in the game that I felt like were the more important things, to do with, existentialism and evolution and the psychological themes in the game, which were really deep, and I loved discussing those things. And I just felt like it really dragged it down when people were talking about some of the sort of more I didn't like some of the quest design. Felt sort of very dated, but people just didn't like the fact that there were certain things in the game that I felt were, I had legitimate problems with, but didn't detract from what the game did, like S tier did to like a really high level. And like I said, it was in that period of The Last of Us Part 2, and there was just one guy who kept commenting on everything. He had a problem with everything I said about the game, good or bad, like just really contrary about everything. and I could sort of see him progressing through the playthrough. I was just like, you know what, mate, like, that's the way you feel, is gone. And I deleted it in anger, which is a shame. There's a theme developing here, but this was the last thing I deleted, I think. But I kind of don't regret deleting it though, because I feel like that, yeah, like I said about the fan base, but it's an amazing game, and I just felt like people weren't discussing what the game actually did well, and they were just getting hung up on things that I thought I think were sort of objectively not as good as the core things that the game does well. But that's the way it goes. But I remember that guy popped up and like asking what happened to the playthrough, and like that was really gratifying that it annoyed him, because that was my intention. This sounds so petty when you say it out loud, but when you're in a moment when something just annoys you a little bit, yeah, you don't make the right choices, I suppose. So I think we can move on to something a bit more positive now, and that is the glorious Metro series, man. This was like this trilogy I had such a good time with. I read all 3 books from Glukowski. After I think I played the first game, then I read all 3 books, and then I played Last Light and the third game as well. And God, it was just a great time. It just got such a great atmosphere, such great voice acting and performances, and you know, it felt more unique, right? You know, with certain developers, they just have their own style to things, and it nailed the atmosphere from the books, I felt, really well. And just it was the tension that I liked throughout, just the feeling of like, we can't go on like this all the way through. And that was what they captured from the books so well. Yeah, the Metro series, I loved these games. I was probably terrible with the gunplay, but I love the stories, and I really enjoyed the books. I'd highly recommend reading the books before playing. I don't know. The first game and the first book are sort of tell a similar story. So whereas books 2 and 3 compared to games 2 and 3 aren't really as interconnected. So it's tough to know what order to say to play and read in. I'd probably say read book 1, play game 1, read books 2, 3, play games 2, 3 maybe. But I love the Metro. If you've not watched my playthroughs of these, if you can put it with the bad mic quality, at least on the first playthrough, I really recommend these. So now we move on to Until Dawn, a game that just got recommended to me a bunch of times by people. I don't like horror games generally, but I had a great time with Until Dawn. Even though my game crashed at a really crucial moment, I had to replay a large chunk of it, which I remember. But this was such a fun time. It had all the good horror elements, it had twists, it had turns, it had ridiculously cliched characters. I really enjoyed Until Dawn, like reflecting on it now. And this was the first time I think I experimented with thumbnails a bit more. I still hate this style of Let's Play thumbnail, and I'm so glad I stopped doing it, where, you know, you just cut your face out from at some point in the video where you've got like a reaction to something. I much prefer doing these sort of themed thumbnails now. This was the first time I sort of experimented with in these first few parts here. Probably can't see that too well. But yeah, I had a great time with Until Dawn. Sorry, I realised I've not played the video, but yeah, loved it. I loved the comments experience with this as well. It was really enjoyable. I made a few bad choices, I think. This trapdoor in particular. But yeah, great game. Absolutely great game. But then we get to Firewatch. And this was it feels like a few of these games I played early on have a similar sort of mystery to them in a way, in terms of like solving what's going on in these sort of walking simulator style games. But this was a fantastic story-based like exploration game. Really great atmosphere. I mean, I've never been to like the great outdoors in North America and stuff, but I think it sort of captures the loneliness, or not necessarily the loneliness, but the feeling of expanse, right, in the sort of North American wilderness. That you're just so far from stuff. It's so vast, and and you can feel like truly alone there. I captured that really well. Told a really amazing personal story. Really enjoyed Firewatch. This was another game, was Tacoma, where I experimented with the thumbnails because it was so difficult to thumbnail. First-person games are sometimes a little awkward to thumbnail for. If they don't have cutscenes, but this was a great game. Solving the mystery of the crew, the sort of memory projection mechanic. I really enjoyed this. I really did enjoy it. I don't know. I mean, my memory of this is a little hazy, thinking back now, but. Solving everything and the background story of the characters and stuff was something that created like a really cool atmosphere aboard was it a space station or a space shuttle? I think it was a space station. But yeah. Then we get to the vanishing of Ethan Carter. Questionable camera angles were used, but this was again in this vein of walking simulator that I seemed to play quite a lot at the beginning. I was maybe a little bit scared of doing Let's Plays of much longer games early on. I think NieR Automata was probably the longest one I did early on, and Sekiro as well. But so I tried to play sort of shorter games that, maybe if it didn't work out, at least it was maybe over a bit quickly. But yeah, this had a really eerie tone to it at times. Trying to sort of solve the mystery, the sort of what's the right word? The sort of psychedelic element to it, which gave it sort of a unique atmosphere. It's a little bit similar to What Remains of Edith Finch in terms of that sort of slightly mythic or supernatural surrounding tone to it, which was really enjoyable. Maybe I should play more games like this again. But I mean, I've played most of the core walking simulator stuff. There's probably some new stuff that I need to get to as well. Then we get to one of the big, more mixed experiences, which is Life is Strange 2. I don't regret playing this. I regretted playing Before the Storm, but I don't regret playing this. But I just think that the formula that they came up with here, ultimately the sort of parent simulator element of it, was what I felt which I think really changed the whole vibe of the game. Really changed the vibe, because when you in the first game, the dynamic is between friends who are on a somewhat equal footing, and it just completely changes the kind of decisions you have to make. Whereas I think like this game, because you're so burdened with the responsibility of your younger brother, burdened is the wrong word, I suppose, but no, it is that's what it felt like. It means you try and, I mean, at least for me, you feel like you're trying to be responsible for him and do the right thing all the time, and it sort of sucked the fun out of it a little bit, right? It sort of took a little bit of the joy of navigating the game, because you're on the run and you try to be responsible for this little urchin. And all the endings just felt so like overly tense, like not in an enjoyable way. It just felt stressful. It just felt, I think that's the best way to describe it. It was just too stressful, I think, being responsible for this kid, that affected, because when you're playing it that's okay if you've got other things to focus on in things that have more gameplay driven things. But in a purely choice driven game, that responsibility takes over everything. And that's like my overriding memory for the game was just being responsible for Diaz Jr. Yeah, what are your memories of this game, guys? Because mine aren't great, and that's the main reason why. It was just always having to be responsible for him. Yeah. But here we are with a sad one. This is an unfinished playthrough. It's still on the channel. If you ask me for the link, it's an unlisted playthrough, so you can still watch some of it. But this was my attempt at doing my cinematic Witcher 3 playthrough. I don't regret not carrying on with this because I still, like I've said before, I'd love to actually do this again. And the main issue that I have with it is that I didn't have the setup to like record it in 4K. It was on my old microphone, so the audio quality isn't great. So like I think that my intention with it was something that I still would like to do, but the quality of it, if you're going to do an experience like this that has, you know, no HUD and has no menu scrolling and is meant to be more cinematic, and I would read excerpts I would do sort of my own custom quests and my own little intros and stuff using the custom camera stuff, narrations. I quite liked this one, I seem to remember. Let's listen to this one.
How did a Witcher agree to kill humans at another human's bidding?
At the Emperor's bidding, Geralt. And he's no ordinary human. The rulers of the North come up to about where his Pauline's end.
Why?
Simple. He promised to rebuild the School of the Viper, the Witcher's order where I came to be. Witcher's schools in the south fell into ruin long ago, and Witchers themselves became internal exiles, banned from entering most cities. Besides Seret and Ox, I know of 2 other Witchers of the School of the Viper who should be alive and on the path. I don't know where they are. Haven't seen them for years. Now they can come out of hiding. They can come home.
Care to tell me what it was all about?
Kill as many rulers as we could. Lay the blame on the sorceresses. Breed chaos. Prepare the North. Soften it before the invasion. And you know what's incredible? We could not have imagined more fertile soil. No matter what the war's outcome, the northern monarchs will accuse one another. Pursue their God-given rights. Seek vengeance and be at each other's throats for years to come. The North resembles a whorehouse on fire, as your friend Dandelion would say.
Oh, God. Right, yeah, I mean, you can see my intention was to sort of make a more cinematic playthrough, and I think, where was the Novigrad intro? Yeah, but obviously it's very time consuming doing all this, and I felt like if I couldn't do it in like 4K and stuff and at 60 FPS or 120 FPS, that ultimately it's not something people would want to watch. I would love to I'd love to find the time to do this again because it's my favourite ever game. And I put a lot of effort into some of these narrations and stuff. I did my own narrations as well from, just from some of the books that you get in the game. Like I think for this one I was reading out the bit for Novigrad and trying to make it like a lore specific playthrough that stayed true to the books and stuff. Yeah, using the free camera, the gestures mods, and lots of other mods to sort of enhance it. But ultimately, it was too time consuming, and I don't think it was high enough quality for this kind of playthrough. So, but I still play The Witcher 3. I still do this kind of thing with the cameras. But I'd love to come back to it one day. Let me know, guys, if it's something you'd be interested in. Obviously, this game is 10 years old now, which is mad to say. But it's one of the reasons I started my channel, was my love for The Witcher 3. and Horizon Zero Dawn as well. The two games that influenced my starting of the channel. Yeah, maybe let me know if you'd be interested in it. I don't know if I will get to doing it again though. Now we get to Death Stranding. One of my favourite games I've done on the playthrough. I don't know what I was doing with this green screen setup, but I guess it looked alright. It was just, you had to sit so still. I think that's why I ultimately stopped doing it. But I think I used this for this whole playthrough, but sorry if that's a bit jarring. The light, because you had to have the light so bright to get the green screen to work, so it just makes me look like pure egg. Anyway, Death Stranding itself. I love Death Stranding. I have been... The funny thing is that I didn't know about I knew Death Stranding 2 was in development, but I didn't know it was coming out so soon. And the last couple of months, I have been dipping into Death Stranding on PC again. Just because I like the relaxed tone. Not relaxed, but just the trekking, right? Navigating the landscape, the lack of constant violence that is in so many games. Because I want more games to do things like this, to not be so focused on just murdering everything. And obviously there is combat in the game, but I think that those parts of the game are probably some of the worst parts. You know, dealing with the mules, the combat sections with Cliff aren't great, I don't think. I have no idea what the second game is about at this moment. But I just love the moment-to-moment gameplay. The story had its own wrinkles. Obviously, with Kojima, the cutscenes are too long, right? You know, there's no player choice. Everything feels a bit too segregated between player experience and the cutscene experience at times. Maybe I can't imagine Kojima's going to have gotten much better with that. I don't think he trusts the player to tell parts of his story. I think ultimately he needs that separation to tell, you know, he doesn't like to give the player many choices, that kind of thing. But I love the gameplay. I wish more games would have less of a power dynamic involved. But, you know, there is a power dynamic. It's just for being a good deliverer, right? For being a good courier. But I just enjoyed the traversal element of it, and it not just the moment-to-moment gameplay not being so concerned with violence, and you know that's a problem in general in a lot of games. But because I find myself in a lot of open world games after I finish them or during playing, I find myself just walking around. The Witcher 3, Horizon, those kind of games that have such glorious open worlds, I spend most of the time walking around. Anyway, just taking it in, feeling like I'm moving through the game, and that's what Death Stranding nailed. You know, there's the over-tutorialization, which is a problem, but, you know, it's my criticism. I feel sort of similar to this, how I feel about NieR Automata in some ways, where I have a lot of objective problems with these games, but the holistic experience, it's more than the sum of its parts. And Death Stranding is the same. The story had its own twists, but the gameplay in particular, I just really enjoyed how unique it was. I hope it continues with that in the second game, but like I said, the story was sort of wrapped up in a lot of ways. I don't really know where they can take it, but I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know if I want to ask for reassurances from you who've maybe seen some of the preview material for the second game, but I can't wait to start it. I'll try and get it going for a day or two after release anyway. And then I feel like I'm being a bit negative here again, but the Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one, I remember getting hit hard with the nostalgia in this opening bit, but overall I'm not sure I really enjoyed this as much as I wanted to. I'm very aware of the effect of like nostalgia goggles, but I'm always a bit cautious with this kind of thing, and I was very on the fence about playing this, but I sort of thought, right, we'll go into it. And obviously, I'm not saying it's not a bad game by any stretch. The music is unbelievable, the combat is fantastic, but a lot of the little things got on my nerves throughout this game. Like the quest design drove me up the wall. It drove me, to despair. It drove me to despair. I'm not sure I enjoyed the voice performances either, and the sort of changes, some of the changes to the story. Midgard really wasn't that explorable. It was weird. I felt like I'd led myself into it with my nostalgia of Final Fantasy, and my expectations were just all over the place, and I didn't know what I wanted, but it was a bit of a mixed bag. I enjoyed most of it, but there were some like massive caveats for me, and it's one of the reasons I haven't played the second one. I don't know if you guys could tell me if I should or not. If you watch this playthrough and you got a sense of how I felt about the game. But yeah, the nostalgia hit me hard in this first part. Like this bit with the train in particular got really emotional, but I'm not sure I want to play the rest of the series because, yeah, I didn't know how to feel about it. Maybe if it was a Final Fantasy VIII remake. But yeah, anyway. I suppose now that we're on to The Last of Us Part 2, maybe you can get a sense of why I was sort of in a bit of a negative headspace when I took down the NieR Automata playthrough, because I was just on a bit of a sequence of games here that I didn't really enjoy. No more than this game. My opinion of this game, I think I tried to be as fair as possible when I spoke about the game. But ultimately, I think I pulled my punches a little bit with it. I just think I appreciate the production value and stuff and the voice performances, but I just think that it's just a complete mess. Upon reflection, I really don't like the game. I tried to seek out, written opinion on the game just to see really what I was missing, because I felt like the problems I had with it were legitimate, and every time people wanted to sort of wax lyrical about the game, when they do, they never really say what they like about it. It's bizarre. If you seek out any like written essays or whatever on websites about this game, and people who like it or love it, they never really say what they actually like. And fair enough, you can enjoy things for like intangible reasons. I'm okay with that, but I feel like you describe it like that. You just say there's just an intangible reason why I like it, and I feel like people like this game because they feel obliged to, because of the first game, the reputation of the first game. But the reality is, I feel like the character writing in this game is awful. It's just awful. The characters are so shallow. Like the characters in the first game had so much depth to them, so much conflict, and the characters in this game, I just feel like most of the characters, other than Tommy, are all of a very similar age. Like they're all like 20-somethings, like early 20-somethings, late teens, and they're just so entitled. All of them, they all feel so entitled to their own grief, which is fine, but not in an apocalypse. Right? Everybody is grieving in an apocalypse. Like, none of you are special in the fact that your loved ones have been killed or eaten. And it's just a revenge story in this setting. There's just nothing enjoyable about it. And it's not about it being harrowing or anything. It's just, I love melancholic stories, dark stories, sad stories, as you've seen from some of the other games that we've been speaking about. Like Edith Finch is incredibly melancholic and morose, but it does that amazingly. Whereas this is just so shallow. And same thing that with Hellblade. The portrayal of Ellie's PTSD, developing or encroaching mental illness, is so pathetic in terms of how they've written it. What I really dislike, right, when you want to use mental illness in a game, which is fine, with characters, you can't make that the only facet of them, right? You cannot, because then it's just a crutch. All you're doing is defining them by this one thing, and people who have mental illness or don't have mental illness are incredibly complex. It's not the only part of their character, and that's one of my biggest gripes about what they did to Ellie here. Is they they just grabbed everything from the first game, threw it out the window, and defined her by this like year one understanding, like year one of university understanding of PTSD. And I thought it was, and part of me thinks that Neil Druckmann feels like people misunderstood the first game. Like they didn't interpret the ending how he wanted. I feel like he thought people should have been more hateful towards Joel. And I got that, right? I understand that it was meant... Joel was quite an unlikable guy, he'd done horrible things. I understood that in the first game. But it feels like the intention of this game was to ram that notion down your throat. And it really sort of feels like this game is questioning the intelligence of the player with how declarative it is in its portrayal of the characters. And the consequence of that is the characters just feel really one-dimensional and shallow compared to the cast that you have in the first game, right? Joel, Trish? It's not Trish, that's The Witcher. Bill, Sam, his brother. They have such colourful pasts and such depth to back and character depth that I feel like the characters in this just don't have. And that's ultimately why I don't like this game, and why I've replayed portions of it afterwards just to make sure I wasn't crazy. But I just can't get along with it. I cannot get along with it. And again, the headspace I was in, this is why I hated the discourse in the comments. It was just really argumentative. You couldn't discuss anything sort of... I think because the game was so deliberately divisive, it meant that there was no enjoyment in the discussion, and I think that's the sign of something that's poorly written, ultimately, in my opinion. Anyway, okay, let's be a bit more positive. I don't think there's really any more of that sort of negative feeling left. Ghost of Tsushima was a game that I really enjoyed, and it was such a good palate cleanser for me after The Last of Us Part 2. I can't remember who it was, but when I started this playthrough, and I think that The Last of Us, the last few episodes of that playthrough were going up, I genuinely, after I loaded this, I made the video private because I just decided I'd had enough with it after the negativity. I thought, right, well, the last few playthroughs I've just not got along with. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm like too negative at times with some of these games. And I wasn't gonna upload this playthrough. I was just gonna stop after this. And someone left a nice comment. I can't remember who it was now. I remember they had a green picture on next to the comment that made me carry on playing it. Really. But yeah, thank you to whoever that was. Left a nice comment, and it was just like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, maybe I'm just being a bit over the top here. And I carried on, and it was weird because this game it was so like antithetical to The Last of Us in a lot of ways. Like this game is like full of sentiment and reflection, whereas like The Last of Us Part 2 was so full of reaction and like entitlement. It was so polar opposite in those ways, and not really games you can compare, but those feelings while playing it. The quest design wasn't amazing in this game, but I feel like the character interactions had such a powerful sentiment to them in terms of memory and family, and that I really enjoyed. I love the combat, obviously. The parrying and everything gave me that sort of hit from Sekiro, and I really enjoyed the narrative, generally speaking. I feel like because of the map design and the quest design, people sort of conflated that with the dialogue and the character stories, which I thought were done really well in this. And like I said, that feeling of sentiment ran throughout the game, and that was what I really got along with. And love Ghost of Tsushima. Is the sequel coming out soon? I think it is. But this is the game that sort of kept me uploading playthroughs, really. So I'm really grateful to it, and really enjoyed this game. Enjoyed every part of it, really. So I've already spoke about the Metro series. But the two other games, yeah, just similar to what I said before. When you combine it with reading the books, you just get that lovely knowledge base for a playthrough, like I get with the Witcher series, and like you get from certain other games that just have such a depth of lore to them that just engrosses you massively. And I'd echo that about the other two Metro games as well. Metro Exodus obviously is very different because it's outdoors, much more ambitious, technologically more ambitious, lots of ray tracing and stuff. But just, yeah, like I said before, really enjoyed the whole Metro experience. If you read the books and play the games, I'd really recommend it. And then we get to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. It really, again, has that sentimentality to it. It's very English, very, very English. It's southern, right? So I won't hold that against it. But southern England has that southern English countryside feel to it that is so quintessentially English or British. Has that sort of sci-fi in the background feel to it that I enjoy in films and just media in general, where there's a weirdness to it, a sci-fi psychedelic element to it, but it's not like front and center. It's not, it doesn't take over. You're not obsessing over that. You are still. It's more to do with the exploration and the characters, and the music is fantastic, and the atmosphere and the tone. That's the main thing. But it has this sort of thing in the background that is, quite ineffable, and that's what I really enjoyed about this game. The Englishness, the sentimentality, the sort of mystery in the background, not mystery in the forefront feel to it, which is sort of a style of storytelling that I really get along with. Really enjoyed it. Now we get to the big one. Now we get to Outer Wilds, which is my most popular playthrough, just because it's an incredibly popular game, I guess. The kind of game you can only experience once. One of the best games of all time, without doubt. I mean, you make a lot of mistakes in a game like this when you're doing a first-time playthrough. I feel like, it's such a special game, isn't it? If you've not played it, I just can't talk too much about it, but because it's so tied to that first time through, because it's so much about the knowledge. The knowledge is the gameplay, right? It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect, isn't it? There's no real flaws to this game at all. There is no fat on this game. It is just, it's joyous, it's intriguing, it's special, right? Outer Wilds is special. I tried to do a video essay thing on my other channel about it, just to try and describe that feeling of it. It just has, it's a perfect game. It's just an absolutely perfect game. Nothing else you can really say about it, is there? We all love Outer Wilds. There we are, beardless, with Rime. It was sort of weird playing something after Outer Wilds, because Outer Wilds was just such an all-consuming experience, but this was a really enjoyable game that was incredibly sad as well. But I enjoy that melancholic tone that a lot of these smaller games really get right. You just feel like there's something up, right? This isn't just like a lovely little game about a boy on an island doing some climbing and platforming. Oh no, there is an undertone here that you feel from very, very early on. I think a lot of these sort of smaller indies do really well, because they sort of know what they're trying to tell you in a lot of ways, and Rime does that really well. Now we get to Cloudpunk, where I finally stopped doing that head cutout thumbnail. I went back and changed the Outer Wilds ones at the time as well. But yeah, because this game was impossible to thumbnail because there's no cutscenes. It's like a pixel art style. So I just used the poster, put my head in it, and then I just ran with that and I was so happy that I did that because it's just so boring, that typical Let's Play thumbnail. I don't know why I really care about this too much, but this was a great experience, man. I had such a good time with Cloudpunk. I realised that there's a whole like part 2 sequel to this. Thank you, internet. Thank you. But this was a really great time. The cyberpunk theme, the city design, the dystopian tone to the quests, right? That sort of 80s sci-fi feel. Well, that's the cyberpunk feel. I guess that word has entered the public consciousness a lot more now since Cyberpunk 2077. But that, you know, that Blade Runner style, the neon everywhere, the sort of knockoff dystopian Tokyo feel that they all go for. Yeah, I really should get to. It's not a sequel technically, right? It's like a part 2 almost within the same game that they released. That is another like 15 hours. So I really should get to that at some point. But really, yeah, Cloudpunk was great style, really unique. Yeah, maybe I'll get to the sequel. Now we get to Superliminal, which was sort of like a mind-bending 3D puzzle kind of game. I kind of had in my head that I wanted to play a game like Antichamber, which is a game I played a long time ago. Obviously not on the channel before I had the channel, which was sort of like a mind-bending puzzle game. And this had similar vibes. I've been thinking about doing a playthrough of the second Talos Principle game, which is, I suppose it's not quite in this genre, but you know, sort of 3D puzzle exploration game with a sort of philosophical story to it. I might do a playthrough of the first Talos Principle. I have played that before. But yeah, that's what this always sort of makes me think of. The Talos Principle and Antichamber, two of the PC games that I played when I first got back into gaming around like 2012 or something. No, 2013, 2014. Yeah, I really enjoyed those games, and this really reminded me of it. That trippy puzzle style. It's just always really fun. It's really fun, isn't it? Yeah, and then we get to Soma. Yeah, thumbnails, full swing now. I'm so glad I did this, honestly. Like, I enjoy doing these little sort of different design thumbnails. It just, you know, keeps things a bit fresh from playthrough to playthrough. Your thumbnails don't just look all the same, where you're just like, on each one, right? It does my head in that with Let's Plays. But yeah, Soma, goodness gracious me, what a game. I was on the fence about playing this because I don't like horror, but what a great sci-fi story. It was tense, it was emotional, it was personal. Yeah, that real exposed wires, like industrial style it had to the underground bits. Sort of, yeah, what a great experience, man. Great. The ending brought up a lot of discussions. I love a lot of the philosophical stuff that's brought up here, you know, to do with existentialism and transcendence. Those kind of themes that I've brought up in a lot of other playthroughs that really sort of, I really enjoy discussing. This touched on a lot of them. And it's really scary as well. It's really bloody scary. But yeah, awesome. I love Soma. Yeah, I suppose at this point I was trying to do this Cyberpunk series of games instead of playing actual Cyberpunk, because I was sort of holding back because of the condition of the game and believing that it would be in a better condition down the line. But yeah, Katana Zero is really enjoyable. That side-scrolling, sort of awesome soundtrack, just really addictive. Yeah, try and do things as quick as possible kind of thing. Really good style to it. Had that sort of memory loss protagonist element to it as well, which can be hit and miss, right? It's difficult to get right, particularly in modern games, because it's a trope or a story beat that's so prevalent in older games, right? The sort of faceless main protagonist. But they did really well with it here. And then we get to Observer. I mean, what a fantastic art style in this game. You've got the famous Rukahawa here as well. I think the developers spoke about this with this game, about how they wanted to portray their vision of like a true cyberpunk world, right? They wanted it to be as close to the sort of Neuromancer style as possible, which just means as oppressive and like consuming as possible. Like there's no remnant of like the old world. It's all wires and neon and projections and lights and tech. The tech is like coming out of your eyeballs, and it's so far removed from humanity. Like it is a like techno hellscape, really. And it's just, they pushed it so far. Like there's the body horror element, the murder mystery element. The body modification is like really inelegant, right? It's like this, you know, like the seams, the stitches, it's all metal over flesh, right? There's no attempt really to make you look like, to hide it, right? Such a great atmosphere in this. That I think that they achieved that vision. Like I said, they wanted it to be a real oppressive cyberpunk world, and yeah, they nailed that. Right, now we get to Prey. This is I think people try and bring up Prey a lot as one of their like underrated games. I know the game wasn't much of a commercial success, but you know, this genre of game, right, is one that the immersive sim genre, right, doesn't typically sell that well, but people love this game just because you can play the game in so many different ways. You can reach your objectives with such varied kind of tools. It's got quite a unique sci-fi aesthetic to it, I feel. Seem to remember people having a bit of a problem with me playing this on controller, but so are they. I was fine with it on controller. This game gave me the worst jump scare I've ever had. Can I find that? That was the worst jump scare of all time. Well, on the channel at least. It's the Arboretum, I seem to remember. Well, yeah, Prey in general, really, really, really awesome game. People love the immersive sim genre. It's a shame they've got bogged down doing other things since this. I should have played Mooncrash, I think, but yeah, it's just got a lot of wrinkles to it, right? And the level design is so vast. There's just so much to understand. When I'm thinking back on the experience of playing the game, yeah, you develop like a knowledge of the space station, of where everything is, of the placement of stuff, how to navigate it, the obstacles without even thinking, right? And that's just a sign of really good level design. And yeah, true to the genre, right? The immersive sim genre. Yeah, great memories for Prey. And again, I'm just happy with the thumbnails. I know I keep going on about this, but I was just happy I had this sort of more personalised to each game style for thumbnails. Speaking of thumbnails again, that's where we get to Disco Elysium. This is my favourite thumbnail I ever did this. I don't know, it blends in so well. I love the thumbnails for this. Probably one of the best games I've played on the channel. I don't know what I'd class as the definitive top 3, but Disco and Outer Wilds and probably Cyberpunk will probably be the 3, and in no particular order. But what just an unbelievably well written game. I'm on the wrong side, I apologise. But yeah, I think I said it at the end of the playthrough. It's just like an unbelievably well written book, isn't it? It's yeah, it's an absolute masterpiece. There's no other way to describe Disco Elysium. Just a masterpiece. I suppose one of the only negatives, like real negatives of the channel when you're in full flow and you're uploading all the time, is you don't often replay games, and this is one of the games that you kind of owe second, third playthroughs to. I feel, which I've not done. I'd love to revisit it. Something maybe I suppose you could be jealous of people who stream all the time, because I think streaming is, if you stream on Twitch or on YouTube rather than upload edited it's not edited playthroughs, but playthroughs without a chat, a live chat, you could probably replay things a couple of times and your audience would be on board with that. But yeah, masterpiece. There's just what a journey this game is. It touches on so many things if you're willing to engage in the political debates about stuff. And I really tried to, because I'm not an expert in political discussion, but I try to understand a lot of it. I seem to remember people thought I didn't have as a good enough understanding of fundamental Marxism, which I feel like I do, but I seem to remember a few comments about that. But yeah, what a masterpiece. It's just so sad, right, about the developers and everything, and how everything went with the studio, that we're not really going to get anything else like this again. That this is the unicorn of these developers, right? This is their masterpiece. We're not going to get another. We might get a pale imitation, but we're not going to get another. Yeah, Disco. Yeah, unbelievable game. Such fond memories of this. Kimmy dancing in that church, man. Oh, he was cutting some shapes in that church, was Kimmy. Oh, I love it. Yeah, then we get to Subnautica. We're on a real good run here of playthroughs. I feel like there was that 6 months where I just couldn't seem to get a game that I really enjoyed. Right, it was just a few games back to back to back. I didn't hate every second of it, but there was just something wrong with it for me. And then I got this sequence of playthroughs like Outer Wilds, like Disco, like Prey, and a few of the other indies in between, and then Subnautica, that were just perfect. They had such rich stories, rich worlds, rich lore, and such amazing mysteries to solve. And obviously, I struggled a bit with this in terms of the building and the survival elements. I definitely struggled with that more than the other games, which didn't have that element to it. But I did my best, and the story unfolds. I mean, people compare this to Outer Wilds a lot in terms of how you move through the story beats, and it's obviously different in some more significant ways, but I definitely understood that. I still haven't played the sequel. I know maybe there's some mixed feelings towards that from what I understand, but maybe I should get round to what's it called, the Frozen version. I think someone comes back to the planet anyway, or a similar planet. But yeah, what an unbelievable game. The story touches on so many different things, doesn't it? From a sci-fi point of view, and yeah, you unravel all this stuff in your own way, at your own pace, in your own sequence, in similar to Outer Wilds, right? That's why it gets compared to it. But yeah, really fond memories of this game. And then we move on to the big one, right? It was interesting, actually, because I was talking with people in the comments on that Subnautica playthrough, and a couple of people were talking to each other about Mass Effect. And then I mentioned that I never played it. And they go, well, yeah, you've got to. You'll love it. And I've known about Mass Effect without knowing anything to do with what happens in it. But my worry about this was sort of based on my experience with NieR, where I was aware that this game had like a devoted fan base to the point where it might be a bit too much for me, where I would feel like you're just walking on eggshells with such an adoring fan base. You know, it's a trilogy. It's, you know, you're going to be playing it for like 200 hours, and that was my trepidation. But I had a few reassurances talking to some of you in the comments, and yeah, what an unbelievable trilogy, right? It's got everything. It's got everything, right? It's got action, romance, philosophy, big concepts, personal concepts. It's got lots of dialogue and choice and play your own way. It's got a raft of characters of every shape, size, and type, and yeah, it's just got a bit of everything, hasn't it? If you love the kind of classic sci-fis, like the big four Star franchises, right? You know, Star Trek, Stargate, Battlestar, and Star Wars. I think that it has the influence of all of them, and does it really well. And you know what's funny, actually? I picked up the Alistair Reynolds trilogy, but I feel like the story of Mass Effect was that says Revelation Space because it's flipped. The Revelation Space trilogy. I'm like halfway through the second book. That I think they took a lot of inspiration for the Mass Effect, because I think this came out in the early 2000s. And yeah, the stuff in the background is very similar to a lot of the stuff in the background in Mass Effect. Not in like a rip-off kind of way, but you can tell they took inspiration from this in terms of where they wanted to take the story. And I'm really enjoying it. I mean, Revelation Space is a lot colder than Mass Effect because it's written by a physicist, I think. But if you've not read Revelation Space but you've played Mass Effect, I think you will see the parallels quite quickly between the two. But yeah, it's tough to think where they're going to go with sequels to this, because it's kind of where I don't know if you should make a sequel to a trilogy like this, because it's lightning in a bottle, right? And people have their own problems with games 2 and 3 compared to the first one already, after the sort of corporate influence of EA meddled in things. But they're still wonderful games, right? I think that the benefit of that is it's sort of all three games, maybe the first two games more than the third game, have their own vibe, right? Being on the other sides of the Milky Way, the sort of more settled side, and then the more lawless side in the second game. They have their own vibes to them, right? I think the first game, upon reflection, I remember speaking about, I think the first game probably is my favourite of the three. But, the third game has all those emotional moments, right? That just broke me. Absolutely broke me. Not much more you can say about Mass Effect, right? It's a complete experience. I think that's why it's so enjoyable, right? It has choice, action, all the different characters, the set pieces, the lore, the world building. It's just got everything. This is like the power of what a game can do, right? It's just got something for everyone, I feel. Yeah. And I was so relieved that I enjoyed it. I mean, some people, I think, maybe some had some response to, I think particularly when I laughed at I've forgotten her name now. The woman on the bridge in the second game. I've forgotten her name. People really hated that. I found that a bit weird. But that's what I said. I was really worried about the fan base, basically. Sort of jumping on every little thing you say. Like I felt like it happened with the NieR playthrough a little bit. But it wasn't like that in general. There was a little bit of that, but not too much. But yeah, I love the philosophical debates. I really enjoyed some of them. Some of the moral debates as well, particularly with the genophage and stuff. I really enjoyed those discussions, right? So then I guess we get to Echoes of the Eye. I mean, same feelings as Outer Wilds, really. I suppose, yeah, maybe the story in Echoes of the Eye changes how they view the story of the main game a little bit. It didn't really for me. I think it complements it wonderfully, really. It's a really emotional story that crescendos in a similar way to the main game, right? How that sort of final loop as you try and move through the specific order of things builds up. Yeah, it mimics the sort of through lines of the main game really well and coexists on top of the story of the Nomai's search, right? For the Eye of the Universe, same sort of thing. Yeah, just adds to a perfect game, right? Yeah. I remember being so unsure of what this was going to be when I came in, because yeah, I think that they deserve a lot of credit for integrating this in the manner that they did. And I always like alternative expressions of technological concepts. So the whole sort of computer within a flame element in Echoes of the Eye is just fascinating, right? And I've been I think I've mentioned this before, but there's a film called Vesper that's about more of a biotech vision of the future rather than a cold metal version of technology for the future. And I feel like in Echoes of the Eye you had an element of that, right? Where it was, very wooden, everything, but that didn't mean that they weren't technologically advanced, right? And yeah, it just plays on the idea of technology could be something that exists within biology and not necessarily within metal and circuitry and circuit boards and electricity. That might not be where the apex of technology could be, just as a conceptual notion. This represented obviously more aesthetically in Echoes of the Eye, but they were still advanced, right? But it was just in a more naturalistic representation, which as a choice I really enjoyed anyway. It's something that I've been enjoying more and more in various other fictions, leaving behind this sort of it's like the antithesis of the cyberpunk style, really. So yeah, I can't really compliment Echoes of the Eye even more, and Outer Wilds in general, but yeah, wonderful DLC. And then we get to Return of the Obra Dinn. I just glancing at the thumbnails, I was really happy with changing the way I did thumbnails again. I know I keep saying this, but it just makes the process of doing any series just feel more bespoke and less, if you can remove any element of monotony from anything that you do, I think it can make it feel more enjoyable. And I think that, yeah, I'm really happy with how I've changed doing thumbnails as for a Let's Play channel, because I feel like it's so generic on most other channels, how the same sort of blueprint gets used. But yeah, the Obra Dinn is, it's one of those where you can feel a little conflicted. I forgot I did this in black and white. Because you feel like you're being judged a lot more because you're using skills of deduction, right? Trying to put things together a lot more. So it can make you feel a little self-conscious playing these kinds of games, especially when things don't click. I tried my best not to brute force it or do things by process of like brute force elimination. I think I tried to figure things out in a qualitative manner as much as I could. I think you end up going over a few accidents, but I think that's to be expected. I think people who will have played this game, on their own, obviously in the normal way, might have brute forced more elements of the game than they would be prepared to admit. But yeah, it's a wonderful story, great art style that never really gets boring. It maintains its charm, and yeah, I think sometimes having a consistent stylized aesthetic just works, doesn't it? I think, yeah, it's something that's difficult to capture in bigger budget games, isn't it? This overtly stylized aesthetic that indies just have the privilege of working within the confines, and sometimes art works better with boundaries, doesn't it? And I think that some of the games that I've been talking about here, are really good examples of that, where the game has its limitations, and that is actually to its benefit. And yeah, the Obra Dinn, really enjoyed it. Really captures a sort of different feel that's almost, I don't know, like somewhere between like a detective murder mystery and almost like a Where's Wally element to it, where it's something that appears simple but is so complex, right? So that makes it sort of more approachable in some ways, right? Where you walk willingly into the complexity of the game, if that makes sense. Because you think it seems quite straightforward. Oh, they're all there, we'll figure the picture out, and then no, there's layer upon layer upon layer to realise and figure out, which was one of the awesome bits about Obra Dinn. Yeah, a bit of a strange one now with Sable. Obviously, what happened here was I had a corrupted file, and I lost 3 hours, maybe 4 hours of gameplay due to a corrupted video file that I could not recover. And because the game wasn't necessarily the longest, I just had to sort of cancel the playthrough. So it was a shame. It's a beautiful game. It's got a lovely art style, great music, everything. Obviously it's in a desert, so it's going to feel a little bit empty at times, but I feel like the quest design in the game wasn't the best at times. The fetch quests felt a little bit like they hadn't been thought out as well as they should at times, but the general movement throughout the game was just a joy, and I was just really annoyed that I lost so much of the playthrough. And because when you're doing a blind playthrough, that's sort of the whole point, so I just had to cut it short in the end. But I did finish it. I really enjoyed it. The soundtrack's fantastic. And then we get to Mass Effect Andromeda. Clearly a game that divided opinions within the Mass Effect fanbase. Probably didn't sell very well. I think was quite glitchy at release. But honestly, I really enjoyed Andromeda. For its many flaws, I think that the sort of core character experience the meat and potatoes of the Mass Effect experience, right? I think the result was really good. I think that there are obvious problems with the game. I think that it looks like a problem now in terms of the antagonists, right? The Rocky guys. I've just forgotten their name. The main antagonists in the Andromeda galaxy. I think the problem was that they were setting up a whole new trilogy, right? So of course they're not going to reveal all and conquer all in the first game. So, but because they cancelled the follow-up games, the antagonists it doesn't feel as satisfying, right? But I think you do have to keep in mind that the layers to them were going to develop across two, massive 100-hour game, 2 more 100-hour plus games. I think that it struggled a little bit from a lack of species variety, right? That is obviously one of the major strengths of the original series, right? A lot of the races that were on the other ship hadn't arrived yet, which didn't help. So you kind of only had Krogan, Asari, Human, and Solarian alongside the 2 races that we had from Andromeda. So there was a slight lack of variety, lack of newness in that sense. I feel like the first Mass Effect mainline Mass Effect game, one of its most enjoyable qualities is that just feeling completely lost in and amongst so much information and so many different races, political structures, relationships between different factions. And being bombarded with that is one of the most enjoyable things, because it makes the universe, the galaxy, whatever, the game world feel so vast and big. And I think that was a slight problem for Andromeda, because you had these two new races and that was kind of it. And one of them was, you know, the big bad, and they were all conquering, and you didn't get to know them too intimately. So it was only really one race, and that didn't help. But it was mostly the quest design that was the biggest frustration. But I was, you know, you can get past that, I think, and enjoy the sort of character relationships, and the combat is much better in this game than it was in the originals, in my opinion. Or at least it's just a bit more. Maybe a bit more fun. Maybe you guys disagree about that. I don't know. But I think if they would have been allowed to make the full trilogy, I think it would have been good. I just think that they maybe didn't have. I don't know what the behind the scenes problems were in terms of the budget, maybe with adding more races to it. But I feel like that would have helped a lot. I still really enjoyed it. It's just the quest structure that caused little frustrations consistently for me. But I still enjoyed the main plot and the characters and stuff, and still a really cool adventure. Then we get to Sifu. I mean, I like melee combat focused games in general. I find it more engaging. I think I'm a bit better at them than ranged combat games, shooters and stuff. I don't know why, but I just find it easier to react. But yeah, I had a great time with Sifu. I don't think this was a particularly popular playthrough that I had. But I love this kind of relentlessly difficult sort of game. The boss fights were really memorable. There's a lot of tension. There's so much variety in how you can handle the combat, and it made obviously that replaying the game is one of the main mechanics, with the aging mechanic and to do with death and stuff. But yeah, this is something I would quite like to get back to. I think maybe I forget about it just because it's on the Epic Games Store, which is awful to use. But yeah, really enjoyed Sifu. Great beat 'em up. With lots and lots of layers to it. And then, as we continue with a bit of our Cyberpunk kick, we get to Echo. Now, aesthetically, this is one of my favourite games ever, really, I'd say. I can't think of too much that's like this. The architectural style, accompanied with the elegantly told sci-fi story, it's just wonderful to move through. And just the quieter sections, the bit even without the sort of stealth puzzle sections that have the enemies to interact with, just moving around this just unbelievably decadent level design and aesthetic. It's so glorious to move through. Yeah, just everything about it just feels so nice to move through the game world. And yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed the story. It's a doomed protagonist. It's deals with a lot of the. I think you're getting the idea really that I really like it when things like philosophy and good character stories cross over. I'm really partial to that because I just enjoy fiction to be a bit more contemplative, and a bit just to take its time a little bit, particularly in games. and this game did it really well. And it's a shame, obviously, this studio went under, I think, fairly soon after the game released and stuff. But what's always fascinating in these ambitious indie titles is just the ways that they achieve an ambitious vision, right? Because these levels, there's a lot of duplication, right? But it doesn't detract from the aesthetic in any way, right? It adds to it, if anything, that decadent marble, the shininess, the gold, the silver, the tall ceilings. It's so ridiculously decadent, because this was meant to be like a safe haven for the ultra rich, right? And yeah, it's such. If you haven't played this game, even if you watched it, I'd still really recommend playing it, because I really remember this playthrough. I remember this playthrough really fondly, and it's just got a really unique atmosphere. You know, it has some of that atmosphere that isolated space games, you know, tend to have, where you feel sort of alone in the vacuum of space, but contrasted with these hallways and rooms, it just has its own vibe in and of itself that I really enjoyed. And then we get to Cyberpunk. I put a lot of effort into this playthrough. You know, after I think it was Andromeda. Andromeda was the first blind playthrough I did where I used mods. It was minimal mods in Andromeda, but I came into Cyberpunk with the intention of, because I'd been thinking about how I don't get to do many repeat playthroughs. So I wanted to really put some effort into some of the things that I would think about doing for a repeat playthrough, for a blind playthrough, which was a big risk on my part. You know, you don't know what it's going to screw up in terms of the visuals and stuff, but I wanted to have that. You know, when you like that, my experience that I have with the Witcher games, where repeat playthroughs are just have so much more enjoyable, because in some ways, because you can, when you utilize really good mods, and you just tailoring the experience over and over. So I just wanted to try and channel that attitude towards Cyberpunk, and I put a lot of effort into, like, I really you've got to pat yourself on the back occasionally, right? Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that is really rough around the edges from earlier playthroughs, but I really liked these intro things when I was messing around doing them, and the sort of music that was in the intro. And but yeah, Cyberpunk is an unbelievable game. Now, obviously, I played it sort of halfway through its redemption, right? I played on update 1.5 or 1.6. I probably could have waited longer and played it in 4K as well. I think I did the main playthrough in 1440p, but I think Cyberpunk is one of, in terms of things I like, it's just got everything, really. It's got that character depth all the way through. It's full of moral dilemmas, philosophical dilemmas, you know, so much philosophy to contemplate, and some stuff that's obviously very typical of dystopian fiction, but it integrates some things that you know, so a lot of the things that CD Projekt Red are really good at, in terms of, you know, making the player feel the weight of their decisions, right? Making it feel like they are truly your decisions, right? You're not just playing through a fully scripted story experience, right? Like I guess like Death Stranding is in terms of its story, at least. And, you know, it has its rough edges for sure. But I've always appreciated CD Projekt Red being so ambitious. And in the world of a AAA video game, ambition usually results in bugs or glitches and stuff. But yeah, the story, the characters. I spoke about this game at length after I'd finished playing it anyway. But obviously, I come back to the game a frequent amount still, and it's just that I've seen rumors that they might not set the sequel in Night City, which I think is absolutely mad that they do that, because to have built this glorious city, I mean, they hired like professional architects and well, multiple architects to design the city. I mean, and there's a city in China that they actually sort of based it on. I saw actually. What's the city called now? Is it Jinping? When you see pictures of that city anyway, you can see the way the river runs through. It's very similar to Night City, or Night City is very similar to that. But I don't know how you could leave Night City behind, because it's so integral to all of the fiction, right? The original Cyberpunk is set in Night City. Cyberpunk Red is set in Night City. Cyberpunk 2077 is set in Night City. I don't see how you could leave, because the city's face can change so easily. I mean, if you visit London, you know, multiple times over 10 years, 15 years, the city changes quite a lot over such a short period of time. And I think that they depicted that. I'll talk about Phantom Liberty as well, even though that I obviously played that a good amount of time after the main playthrough. But in that 2 years later cutscene where where Militech is increasing its influence over NC, I mean, you can see the face of the city changing, right? And if they do, I don't know what kind of time jump they're going to do. I mean, maybe they do 20 years. I don't know. You could completely change the face of the city, but I don't know. Maybe they'd be worried about players thinking it was too similar. It's a difficult choice, right? It's a difficult choice. How much can you fundamentally change the city? So maybe I'm going back on my original thought, but yeah. Jackie, Judy, Panam, Johnny, and Hanako. The whole Arasaka family. The story with Perales. I mean, these things really stick with you. They've really stuck with me. I mean, it's just a masterpiece of a game, man. And I think the things that it does well would have been good in the. I mean, I played a good amount of the prologue when it came out, testing it out and stuff. Played up to what was it? Up to the bit where you meet Judy and Evelyn, this bit basically, and obviously the game would have been functionally different in terms of the gameplay, but the best parts of the game are the lore, the story, and the characters, and they were already in the game, right? So that when people say Cyberpunk was always good, that is kind of what they mean, because the writing and the world building and the lore and everything, they were already there. It was just, you needed a decent PC to properly get to all these things, right? I'm not sort of saying that the console versions weren't atrocious, which they obviously were, but yeah. It's this game is like I was saying about The Last of Us Part 2 has sort of aged really poorly in my memory. The more I thought about it, I mean, the more time and you sort of thinking about these things maybe in the odd moment. Cyberpunk has aged in my mind. It's just like a fine wine when you contemplate some of the things you go through in the game, particularly because of the speed at which you experience some of the things in the game, right? The breakneck speed that some things happen, and it sort of washes over you a bit in the moment, and then when you actually reflect on some of the storylines, it sort of stuns you a little bit. But I love Cyberpunk. Phantom Liberty was a little strange in a way, because it's a fantastic DLC. Dogtown's amazing, but I think that one thing that the main story had that Phantom Liberty lacked was, I feel like there was a human tether to most of the stories in the main campaign, right? You were sort of surrounded by all these dystopic visions and notions and corporations and all the rest of it. But there were certain characters who were tethers, I would call them. You know, Judy, Panam, Jackie while he was alive, River, a few of the other nomads, and you know they felt more grounded, right? They felt like they were interested in the person and not the mercenary, V's skill set. Whereas I think that the difference in Phantom Liberty was absolutely nobody cared about V as a person. So it was more gut-wrenching a lot of the way through, but it was also sort of colder in a way. You were in this world of corporate espionage with Reed and Songbird and Hansen and the President and President Myers. And no one really gave two shits about you. It was what you could do for them, ultimately. Songbird was using you, Reed was using you, the President was using you, so on and so on. Maybe Alex, you could say, but even I don't know even then. I think that was the main difference between it, but it still had a lot of the same dilemmas. I don't know if the lack of a personal connection, because I didn't buy Songbird from minute one. I have to say, if you watch my Phantom Liberty playthrough, I didn't really buy into Songbird's empathy at all. I thought it came across quite fake the whole way through. So I didn't really feel that close connection with her, but it was that struggle between choosing between what you would call a corp in terms of Reed and the Bureau and stuff, and Songbird being a powerful individual. And I feel like I remember saying, like, you generally in this universe you want to side with the individual. You don't want to side with the group, because the group do not really care about you. They have their own ambitions, which is, I suppose, one way you could say that Songbird was maybe a bit more of a personal connection, but he still used you in the end. But yeah, Cyberpunk, man. Wonder what they're going to do in the sequel, because they could do anything, right? I think that it's much more open than their possibilities for The Witcher 4. Cyberpunk, I think they can take it anywhere. But I think the problem is that they've sort of exhausted all of the connections to the original fiction, haven't they? You know, Johnny Rogue, Adam Smasher, all of it. Even like, you know, more like sort of peripheral characters like Raish Bartmoss and people like that, President Myers. We've met them all, we've experienced them all, we've killed a few of them. Like, there's no ties to any of the source material left, so they're going to have to... So there's no... For people who are in touch with the fiction, there's no... not really anyone for them to call back on unless they really go back in time. You know, so Morgan Blackhand, maybe, people of that nature, you could see them when they were younger. But if they're going to go forward in time, they're going to have to create a whole new raft of characters, which is scary and exciting, right? But, you know, they've done that a little bit, I suppose, in The Witcher. Letho. Eorveth, I suppose, yeah. Eorveth is mentioned in the Witcher books, but you don't really meet him. He's just mentioned in passing. So they have proven that they can write new characters. But yeah, love Cyberpunk. Every time I think about it, I think my memory of it gets better and better. So yeah, one of the best games I've ever played. And then we get to Elden Ring. It's a strange game to describe for me, Elden Ring, because I think when I try and talk about it, I don't think it comes across like I'm like in love with the game. Because I don't think it's FromSoft's best game. I would, if I was ranking the FromSoft games, I would put Sekiro, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls above Elden Ring. But I still really enjoyed it. I think that what Elden Ring is, I was thinking about this the other day, how to describe it. I think that its best quality is how consumable it is, if that makes sense. It's much more approachable than all the other Souls games in terms of, I think that the open world sort of softens the difficulty a lot. Most of the stuff you encounter in the open world is quite tame, really, in comparison to some of the main boss fights and secluded sections, which are the more traditional Souls design. So that's what I think it is. I think it's more digestible. I think it's like I don't know how you describe it. It's like a big packet of crisps, right? It's just really edible, right? It's not like it's a weird way of describing it, but it's really consumable. You can just go anywhere and you just get on with it, right? And you just keep going, and nothing really is that frustrating that it makes you quit and stop. But like I said, I don't think anything really shines out and above compared to some of the other Souls games, right? I don't think it has really any boss fights more memorable than Lord Ishin in Sekiro, or than Maria in Bloodborne. I'm thinking of boss names here in the old Souls game. Sorry, or like some of the more memorable encounters in Dark Souls. In terms of more Dark Souls, it was the level traversal. I feel like that was more memorable, but than the boss fights. But I don't think Elden Ring hits the heights of those games, but it's like a consistent. It's just a very consistent experience that is so playable, and has a lot more variety, obviously, with the build choices that obviously I didn't experiment too much with. I just went hell for leather with the great shields and the great weapons, which I really enjoyed. I've mentioned before how I've played most of these games in the past with dexterity builds before I had my YouTube channel, and when I've actually finally done a strength build, a tank build, and I've loved it. It's taken it took a lot of the stress out, I think, for me. Maybe I would feel that the game was a bit more generally difficult if I played with a dex build or a sorcery build, or filthy sorcerers. But yeah, I really enjoyed the DLC. It sounds like I'm coming across a bit critical, but what I'm saying is that I loved playing it. I played it for 200 odd hours. Longest series I've got on the channel, and it was really, really fun the whole way through. So that's what I mean. It's just a solid experience all the way through, and then you've got a couple of the incredibly difficult boss fights like Moog, and of course Malenia. God. But whereas I think Moog was a satisfying boss fight, I just still feel like Malenia was a bit unfair. I think that she was cut content from Sekiro. Her speed just felt really strange to deal with in a slower paced game. She was just too quick. I know they tried to balance it out with her lack of poise, but yeah. Elden Ring's a great game. What I mean, when I'm sort of, I'm not being negative. All I'm doing is comparing it to get other games from the same developer. Right? I'm not comparing it to other games outside of From Software. So it's like I'm comparing greats to greats. That's what I mean. But I don't think it quite has it doesn't have the mechanical satisfaction for me of Sekiro. It doesn't have the artistic and aesthetic qualities of Bloodborne, and I don't think it has the satisfying level design of the original Dark Souls. It has a bit of all of that stuff worked in, but those games, I think, because they're more focused, are possibly more memorable in the end. But still, an awesome game. And maybe I missed out by not using the multiplayer as much, but hey, what can you do? And then we get to Eastshade. So this brings me back to a thought I was having about Death Stranding before, about I would really love a game that has, the sort of budget of a AAA game, that has the sort of dialogue choices and character depth of like the Witcher series, but then isn't so focused on the power fantasy, right? Of, getting stronger in combat and stuff, and just not being all about violence, and somehow being built around some satisfying, gameplay mechanics that aren't all about direct combat engagements. And obviously this is more of a walking simulator, but Eastshade scratched that itch for me because it was like an open world island, right? There was a bit of crafting involved, but it was about being an artist, and it was just it's so charming, right? It's so charming. It's got so many core a lot of the joyous feelings you get from fantasy games, but it doesn't have a lot of the drudgery, right? Like you would in The Witcher, which I like that in The Witcher because it's that makes it really dark and gritty and adds an element of realism to the fantasy. But what I enjoyed about Eastshade was just it allows you to contemplate the characters and the story a lot more when you're not worrying about the combat as much. And I think sometimes too much violence in a game that has a serious story breaks the immersion a little bit at times. I remember thinking this in Horizon Forbidden West a bit. You're trying to save humanity so much, but then you're butchering like piles and piles of other humans, and it creates a bit of like cognitive dissonance, doesn't it? In sometimes when you're taking part in the story and talking to characters, you're trying to preserve life and you're trying to be diplomatic and negotiate and things like that. But on the other hand, you just stay stealthily crawling in the grass, shooting people in the head with a bow and arrows, chopping their heads off and whatever. It just creates a bit of a bit of dissonance. And this was like a really good, I hate saying palate cleanser because that sort of cheapens the experience, but this was a really cool indie game and something I'd wanted to play for a while. And I wish bigger budget games would take a risk, similar to like with Death Stranding, where they found a way of developing, a deep and engaging gameplay mechanics that weren't centered on violence. And I really enjoyed the sentimentality in a game like Eastshade. I think contemplating your past and family and learning the history of a place as well. Really enjoyed Eastshade. I'd really recommend it as a good chill out game, right? It's just lovely to explore and do some paintings, right? Create some artwork. Okay, so I thought I was maybe done being. I don't know if this is going to be negative, but we're going to talk about BioShock and BioShock Infinite as well. Obviously, I didn't play BioShock 2. Considering the reputation that these games have, and how much people love these games, I don't think they were. I don't think I enjoyed them as much as I was maybe expecting to. Maybe I had my expectations set a bit too high coming into these games, considering how people talk about them. But I found, obviously the aesthetics of the two locations, the underwater metropolis and the sky cities in Infinite, are fantastic aesthetically. But I do feel like some of the themes, in terms of the philosophical themes, the political themes, were a bit too on the nose at times for me. They were a bit too declarative. I always feel like political themes are best placed behind like a veneer of normalcy, I guess, because people just, I don't know. I felt like they were a bit too caricatured sometimes, the political themes. I really didn't enjoy the gameplay too much, particularly in the first game. maybe I'm just not great with immersive sims and stuff, or variants of it. But yeah, I definitely have mixed feelings. I still enjoyed the story and stuff, but it wasn't. I don't necessarily think it was my kind of game overall. I think that, I think it was just a bit of a mixed bag for me. I don't think it was. I'm not decrying it as a bad game or something, like maybe it was about The Last of Us Part 2. I just don't think I got along with certain elements of it that I think other people would obviously other people really enjoy. And the same goes for Infinite, really. I'm glad I played them, definitely, but I think that the moment-to-moment gameplay hindered me as well a little bit, just because I found it a bit repetitive, and I'm not very good with shooters. I know it's not necessarily strictly a shooter, but yeah, great games within their own right, particularly for the time that they came out at. The first game in particular, I think BioShock is a better, tighter experience than BioShock Infinite. But I'm glad I played them at the very least. And then we get to A Plague Tale Requiem. I know I've already spoken about Plague Tale Innocence, but Requiem, a different experience. I'm not sure if you can compare the two as much. They tried to expand on this. This was at least the thumbnail for the first one was one of my favourite ones. I did duplicating the rats in the background. I don't know. I was really struggling to get a base thumbnail design for this. I just couldn't think of anything that would work. And when I came up with turning the rats into the actual background, a blurry background, it just seemed to work really well with the black and white. Anyway, it's a gorgeous game, and it's just very tragic. We've got a doomed, I don't know, is it a doomed protagonist, a doomed secondary protagonist, which I'm massively partial to. It lags a little bit in some of the more open sections, obviously. I don't think the game is as mechanically tight as, considering the really high fidelity and visual quality of the game. I don't think the gameplay quite stacks up to that at times. I don't think that some of the characters weren't. I don't know if you would say that they were as good as the first game. But I think that they did a better job of handling the antagonists in this game. The first game, the antagonists were a little bit caricatured, a little bit comic book villain. Whereas here, I think it was handled a little bit better. But you're here for Amicia and Hugo, right? And and their journey, and these two games, there's something about them. I can't really. I'm not doing a good job articulating my thoughts on them at all here, but there's just the holistic experience of these games, that like the music, the voice acting, the settings, the bleakness, which I think is so true to the setting and the time period. It just comes together, and it's very immersive. It's very immersive, and the soundtrack is so stellar. It adds so much feeling to the two games, and that's still my main takeaway. The character deaths and the music are so powerful, and that's the feeling that I still take away from these games whenever I think about them. And then we get to Inscription, which, I mean, I can't imagine anyone who played all of this game didn't enjoy it. It's just so satisfying. It's got like a real like meta element to the story. The player playing the game, being observed. Yeah, and the card game itself just rolls and rolls and rolls and develops and develops. It was just really fun, right? I know that there are a lot of games that try and use a card game, but as like the central pivot around the story, but few do it as sort of with as much personality as this, and it never got really monotonous, and then the game completely changes, doesn't it? It changes like format like several times, and yeah, it's just a real achievement. What a fantastic game! Like, yeah, like I think you could call Inscription a bit of a masterpiece, isn't it? It's just so mechanically satisfying and evolves all the way through. Yeah, just a really playable game that is very unpredictable, right? That's one of its biggest strengths. Yeah, this was really good. I do feel like, in terms of my channel in general, after that period earlier, I feel like I've developed a better sense of what the kind of game will suit me more for a Let's Play. I think I've got a better sense of what games to avoid now. Games that I think some of those games I would definitely have played, like The Last of Us Part 2 or Life is Strange 2 or the Final Fantasy 7 Remake. But I just don't think they suited me as for a Let's Play. I think playing them like off camera would have been fine. Like I played Spider-Man 2 in my own time when it came out, because I just don't think it would have made a good Let's Play for me. I don't think it would have been a contemplative enough game, enough lore. You can add your own lore with a comic book game, I know, but yeah, I think I'm and like games like this as well. I just think I've been on a bit of a better roll with identifying the right games. Then we get to Tunic. What a special game Tunic was. Very unique, right? I think the sign of a great game really is it becomes difficult to place it in a genre, right? I think when you try and put games like Outer Wilds, games like Disco Elysium, and games like Cyberpunk as well, even though you might think it's easy to put Cyberpunk within a genre, they're games that are so all-consuming, I guess, that you can't put them in a genre, right? You put them in a genre, you create expectations, and then you realise that they defy a lot of the expectations of whatever genre you try and place them in. And I think that's true for Tunic. I think I remember coming into it as maybe described as a bit of a roguelike, Souls-like in some ways with the combat. I mean, I don't think I agree with that. I mean, maybe you could, the rolling and the blocking and some parrying maybe, but that has nothing to do with it. It's all about solving the mystery of this world and the manual, and just depth, just layer upon layer of puzzles that give you such an awesome sense of achievement. I've watched a couple of Let's Plays of this actually over this year, and it's you're just seeing people come to the realization, and obviously the puzzles you tend to have another puzzle hidden behind them, right? And I guess the genius is like, how do you design a game that gives people that revelation without sort of immediately giving them the resolution that's hidden behind it and the one that's hidden behind that. It's such an achievement, right? How they sort of stagger the ability progression and the world development with the puzzles and the reveals of certain pages throughout the manual and the order that you find them in. It just completely shapes the journey, and just a real achievement of game design, a real achievement. I think that's not being patronizing, because I know nothing about actual game design, you know what I mean, but that's how it feels. I mean, because that's how it makes the player feel. It makes you feel like you've earned every discovery. And yeah, Tunic is a fantastic game, and I think it would be satisfying on a few levels for people who maybe don't even like this kind of puzzle game. I think that maybe you wouldn't get all the way to the end, but you get through a certain number of layers in a satisfactory way. But so much of it is just hidden in plain sight, isn't it? That yeah, it's a fantastic game, Tunic. Upon reflection, you realise. I always say this. Sometimes you don't realise how much you love a game until you try to tell someone else about it, and then you're telling them about it, and you just gush in, and you're talking too fast, and you're just telling them about all these different facets. You know, like you would for any book or play or film or whatever, or TV series. And yeah, that's like that with Tunic. I don't think I've really spoken about it much since I finished it, but even stuff like that, look at the pattern there. What a great game. And then we get to Zero Escape 999. This is one of my favourite thumbnails I made, just because it blended in seamlessly. One of my favourite ones. But I guess this is with a little tinge of sadness, obviously, because the second game I couldn't get in the mood for. But this was such a great time. I feel like I just really got into it. And I wasn't expecting to, but I think once you get the right mindset for a game, right, that's sort of half the battle. And once I adjusted to the sort of tone of Zero Escape, and not taking I guess it's the translation, but not taking the dialogues so seriously, and just adjusting to that tone, and then being able to laugh without being fearful that I was being sort of judged for because I wasn't laughing at the game. In a way I was, but it was sort of laughing with it. It was because it felt kind of self-aware of its tone. But yeah, lots of choices, and it's tough to describe this game in terms of how I enjoyed it. I think I feel a bit. It's not a similar game to Until Dawn, but how I feel about it is similar. Where if you just sort of describe this game to me, I would kind of say, right, I don't think I'm going to like this. But once I got into it, it was just really fun, really enjoyable. Felt really unique. I know that this is a bit of a genre in and of itself, this style of Japanese game. But I think the problem is with I love these thumbnails. The problem that I ran into with Virtue's Last Reward, and why I haven't continued playing it, I think it was purely to do with the silent protagonist. I think that took a bit of the sting out of some of the cringy dialogue in the first game, because Junpei had his spoke for himself, and it just, the fact that wasn't in VLR, and that rabbit just really put me on the back foot. That squeaky voice, it made me feel like mentally exhausted right from the beginning, which is why I would like to try and play it again. It's just, I think that when I tried to play this, I was just not in the right mood, and I couldn't get myself in the right mood. I just remember that in the second part, I just couldn't, get myself back there. And I think that the lack of that voice protagonist was one of the problems I had. Then we get to Spiritfarer. This was a game that I sort of felt like I knew I would really like. I think I remember crying over the trailer, just because it's a game about loss, game about death, but it's also like a sort of cozy builder as well. It's got a lovely soundtrack, really clean, smooth art style, and control scheme. And it was exactly what it said on the tin, right? I think that I really knew what I was expecting, and I got what I was expecting out of this game. Sort of what I was saying about Zero Escape there as well. Once you're in the right headspace for whatever bit of fiction you're indulging in. That means you're going to enjoy it, and I just enjoyed the sentimentality, the goodbyes, right? We've all got those kind of stories in our lives at some point. And people, learning about people's lives, their regrets, all that, or everything they've been through in their lives, and how they reflect upon that when they're at the end. It's just, really special game. I just really enjoyed the melancholic experience here, which I guess I keep saying that, but it's a strange thing to say, but I really enjoy that kind of fiction, that kind of artwork, and this just really allowed me to indulge in that in a way, and that, because it's got that veneer of sort of joyous sort of exploration to it, right? But you're doing something that, it just sort of makes you reflect on how you, as a person, how you deal with loss, and how you yourself reflect on your own mortality as well. I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from start to finish. Really loved Spiritfarer. Nothing but sad memories of this game. Now we get to Alan Wake Remastered. That camera's very close. But it's weird trying to describe Alan Wake. I feel like I definitely enjoyed it, but I'm not sure it was my kind of game. But I appreciated the style of it, how unique it was. Like I was saying before about the Metro series, when you get developers for just, that are localized to a certain place, right? Because, Europe is a relatively small place, but because there's so many countries within it with their own traditions and stuff, when you have a studio that's sort of, comes from a certain culture like that, like Poland with CD Projekt Red, I guess, is it Poland as well for Metro? God, is it Deep Silver, and I've forgotten the other studio's name. But yeah, here this is from. They're from. Are they from Sweden? They're from a Scandinavian country, aren't they? Sweden, I want to say. But yeah, it just gives it its own feel, right? But I guess I suppose one memory that I have with the Alan Wake was rage quitting the DLC. Which is a very negative thing to think about, because I didn't upload the DLC because it was just so frustrating, right? Because the gunplay and the gameplay, it's not what you're here for, right? You're here for a weird story and the atmosphere, right? And the DLC had just turned the difficulty up on the gameplay up to like 15. And it was so aggravating dying so many times. I think I lowered the difficulty and it was still an absolute pain in the arse. That was a bit weird. Obviously, I've not played the second game yet, so that looks like it's a visual marvel. Maybe, there'll be some interlinking themes with Control. I suppose, that should lead me straight into Control. I didn't really like the thumbnails for Alan Wake. Didn't really like them. We'll get to Hades. But yeah, Control. The font for Control. I quite liked the thumbnail for this, I have to say. And I didn't like the one for... I made the transition into 4K video at long last. But yeah, Control has such a captivating art style to it. The bureau itself, just moving through the bureau, is the architecture is just so striking. I mean, it's so striking, just the building, right? I think that they maybe fell short a little bit with the combat. I think that when you first start getting into the combat, it feels amazing. It has a a whack to it, to the telekinesis, the telekinetic abilities and stuff, and an impact to it that's so satisfying. But I just don't think it evolves enough, and I think it gets to the point maybe like 2/3 of the way, halfway, maybe even halfway through the game, where the combat starts to feel a bit repetitive, which is such a shame because I think that the core of the gameplay is really satisfying. Like the weightiness of it, considering you can sort of fly and use your telekinetic abilities. They got that they did that really well. It just didn't have enough depth and noticeable progression to it for me. Like in the way that maybe a game like NieR Automata had, where that just was always satisfying and it always developed and changed and had a lot of wrinkles and depth to it. I think they will make a sequel to this, so hopefully they learn from this game in terms of how to progress the combat scenarios. And part of the problem was to do with the enemies, right? The enemies all feeling a little bit samey past a certain point, but I loved the concept of the sort of morphing gun, and the actual locomotion of Jesse moving through the world was great. My internet's letting me down here. Can't watch my own videos, right? It's very control, this sort of talking while I am on the other side of the screen. I don't know if this is a bit stupid, but yeah. Like I said, the art style, the whole architectural design, that sort of 1950s, 60s? Anyway, like the pre-screen era of technology where everything's very tactile, right? The whole postal system through the building is great. It's just great. The villain was a bit pants. Like I said, the gameplay didn't progress enough, but I don't think that. I think the holistic experience of the game is still a massive achievement, and graphically the game is just stunning to move through. Then we get to Horizon Forbidden West. As I've said before, Horizon Zero Dawn was one of the reasons why I wanted to start a YouTube channel when I played it, which would have been a couple of years before I actually started the channel. And there was an unplanned break during this playthrough because my dog was a bit ill and had to have an operation. So being with him and I got out of the rhythm of uploading, which can be part of the problem, right? You have to get in the swing of upload, record, edit, upload, and so that it doesn't take an absurd amount of time, right? You have to get in the rhythm of it, but it's a great game, isn't it, man? I mean, the game is a marvel to look at, and I think even though there are I think one thing, like I said about Cyberpunk, one thing with both Horizon games, one thing that I really appreciate is the ambition that they had, the vision that they tried to get to, and ultimately, I don't think that they nailed everything, but they got most of it right. And that's what I appreciate, right? They're really reaching for it, and for a studio that had never made a game anywhere near this type, to have told the sci-fi story that they told, more the story. I think that you have to separate the sort of story you're actually experiencing in the Horizon games, and then there's the story from the past. The story from the past is definitely more compelling at times than what's actually happening with the tribes, but the mystery in the first game of the destruction of the annihilation of the world, and then the mystery in this game of the zeniths and the underlying threats and stuff, was really what kept you going. And then the combat is really enjoyable. I think that this game compared to the first game struggled a little bit because it overloaded you with too many weapons, so that sort of weapon wheel maybe this game plays a lot smoother in the combat when you have everything hotkeyed on keyboard and mouse. But like, I felt like I was just constantly using the weapon wheel. Maybe that's my fault. I know you can change that slow-mo thing, but the world itself, the Decima engine, is just, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's one of the of the last couple of generations. Like, this engine is such a technical marvel. I mean, the sights that you behold, the machines that you see moving through the landscape, it's just glorious, right? And that's part of the reason why Death Stranding looks so good as well, is the engine that Guerrilla made. But yeah, like I said, I think that there's some things that don't work, like the tabletop mini game. I didn't really enjoy there's too many weapons in terms of how you fight in the machines, or how they're integrated into the control scheme, at least on PS5 obviously, was a little bit problematic, I thought. But the world, most of the characters, the science fiction elements from the past, and the story of the Zeniths, and that drip feed of figuring out what the hell is going on with the Zeniths and Silence, and reassembling Gaia's subordinate programs, subordinate functions. It's just, amazing. And I think that they, particularly with the DLC, I think that they succeeded in doing some better character development for Aloy compared to the first game, right? Making her feel like more of an individual and less like a conduit, right? I still think that they struggled a little bit with some of the character writing in terms of like the surrounding cast. I still think that they need to make it a little bit darker. That's just my opinion. I don't think that they will, but I think that they need to make some, because some of these tribes that you run into are pretty brutal, but also at the same time they feel a bit soft, like they're a bit too nice and a bit too accepting of things, right? Like, I feel like it should be a bit bleaker to me. Like, it should be a bit more, well, how I see the Witcher world, really, where people will be backstabbing each other. There'd be way more prejudice between groups in a lot of ways. But I don't necessarily think that they're going for that kind of gritty game in a lot of ways. So maybe that's just me projecting onto it a little bit. But yeah, I love Horizon as a franchise. I'm not sure how I felt about the big bad being revealed at the end, but I'm hoping that they can, the reveal of that and where we move to in the third game, which seems like they're going to move to across the Pacific, would be my guess, the Asian continent, where they could add a number of things, right? There could be other institutions that managed to build other different types of technological advancements, right? They can always insert another big tech company like Farzini into the Far East, right? Maybe we get to the island of Japan, the mainland of China, right? Maybe we get there and we discover another wrinkle to things in terms of companies that were trying to find a way of surviving the apocalypse. So I think that there are definitely avenues open for that, because we've only been existing on the North American continent, right? So I think that there is hope for the third game to not maybe be all about what was the guy called now? Anyway, the big machine full of all the Zenith's personalities, as I plunged to my death. But yeah, Horizon's a great game. I have real affection just for the whole world, the setting, and a lot of the characters, and I can't wait for the third game. I think they're going to nail it. I really do. When they've got an ending, when they know that they're working towards an ending, I think they'll nail it. Because to be fair to Guerrilla, the second game, when you're making a trilogy, the second game is so difficult to navigate, isn't it? It's so difficult. I mean, yeah, and considering that, how tough I think it is to, when you know the game's not going to have a definitive ending, like I think that they did a really good job. I think that the problems it has are small things that don't affect the overall experience, and they'll be able to alter those things. I think if they're going to do another mini game like Machine Strike, it needs to have more personality to it. And I think they need to do something about that weapon wheel, because obviously they're going to release on console, on PlayStation, before they release on PC. I think they need to change the weapon wheel. I think games are, generally speaking, game design is trying to move away from that. Like when you play The Witcher 3 now, and you have that alternate control scheme when you play on controller, and you never have to even open the weapon wheel to use the signs and stuff. I think that's what Horizon needs. It needs a quick select within the PS5 controller to make it more seamless in combat, and there's less stoppages while you're just changing ammo and stuff like that. But yeah, I love Horizon. I almost forgot to put Hades in there because I jumped ahead to Control. But yeah, I mean, I'm so glad I played this game. Hades is just... it's a proper masterpiece, Hades, isn't it? An absolute masterpiece, just an absolute joy to play. You know, I love a really good challenging melee-ish combat kind of game. And yeah, it's just perfection. I don't know when the official release date for the second game is. I know it's in open beta, so I could play it, but I'd rather just wait for the full release. It must be some point soon. Maybe it is already. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me. But I loved this. I looked forward to it. I really looked forward to challenging myself, and maybe I got a bit repetitive with my weapon choices, but I tried to do a bit of everything. But I don't think, Hades is just a masterpiece of this genre, right? Of the roguelike. I don't know why they had to do that. Why did you make two genres that sound so similar? Yeah, really enjoyable story, really witty, really good voice performances, fantastic art style, an unlimited variety of weapons, of room variety. Yeah, everybody should play this game. Everybody could play this, right? They'd at least get like one finished run, right? You don't necessarily have to do all the challenging stuff, but it's perfect, right? I don't have any issue with it. There's no issues at all. It's just an endless pit of fun. Yeah, Demeter's the best as well. And you know, and the randomization of stuff is just the right amount. Everything is balanced so well. And yeah, I can't wait to play the second game. I'll look forward to that when it got to its full release. Maybe it has already. I should really check Steam more often. But you know, man, if you're too tuned into the games industry, right? Like as a Let's Player, I think that like you spoil stuff for yourself by watching trailers too much and stuff. Like I just want to, if it's a game, particularly if it's a sequel, like why would I watch the trailer? I think I did watch the trailer for Hades 2 actually, but. You know, I think like trailer 1, you know, when trailer 1's like a bit more vague, is fine. But just don't indulge in the pre-release material too much, I think, as a Let's Player. Or just, I don't know, if you're not like trying to work in the games industry, like, I don't know. Just, if you know you're gonna be partial to something, let yourself be surprised by not watching the trailer. Like, I do that with films now. I try not to watch trailers. Like I try and, if I'm at the cinema, like I try to talk to whoever I'm with as much as possible while the trailers are on, so that you know you can actually get the experience without story expectations. Anyway, I'm rambling on. And now we get to bloody Rain World. Oh man, I love Rain World, but I also hate it. Right? I think that's a fair description. I mean, this is the true Souls experience, right? Just brutal, just absolutely brutal, awkward difficulty. A great story, an awesome setting, you know, gameplay that structures that do require you to think and to, you know, to have a bit of intelligence in terms of how you navigate the world, which I probably don't have. But yeah, I'm gonna play more of this, probably much to my own regret. But I am going to play more Rainworld, guys. It is coming. There are characters. I think there's 3 characters I've not played, so I'll definitely do at least one more, at the very least. But what a special game, man. I mean, this came out in, what, 2017? At least the first character did. Yeah. It'd be cool to go back to, actually, because I've not played it for probably a year now. Maybe a bit less, since I played the last character. So some of it I'll have forgotten. So I'll get that experience back again, because it doesn't matter how many times you go through these sections, they're still a challenge, right? And that's part of the genius of the game, is the randomness of it all, right? The chaos, the absolute unrelenting chaos of trying to navigate this world is just, yeah, it's ceaseless. It's absolutely ceaseless. And I think it's to its credit that this game can infuriate you so relentlessly, and you keep coming back. You keep coming back for more. Doesn't matter how many times Stuart lets me down, or how many times I get eaten by a yoga turkey, Trevor, or, you know, it's just, that's part of it, right? Like the constant frustration is like enjoyable. I sound demented saying that, but it's stressful, right? Everything is trying to kill you, so it's meant to be stressful. You need to be careful. You need to plan things. You need to, like, expect that things are going to go wrong. And yeah, it's a great game. And this has been on my Steam wish list for years, right? Before I started my channel, this game was on my wish list. So when I started playing it without really knowing that there was a bit of a cult fan base of this. So it's the same with Outer Wilds, right? Some games you're aware people love, but like with this and with Outer Wilds, I had no idea that people really enjoyed this game. I thought it was just a proper niche game. I had no idea. So I've really enjoyed talking with everybody about this game, and I will be doing more. I'm looking forward to it. It will be maddening, and I will love it. And that leads us to Demon's Souls, actually. The one game that was missing from my From Software experience, right? Because I've never owned a PS3. So I was really glad that I got to this eventually. I think it is a very different type of Souls game, I think. When I've heard people discuss the differences between a lot of the Souls games before, you know, with me having played all of the others except this. And I think one thing people say that people who really like Demon's Souls and rank it higher than Dark Souls, for example, or Bloodborne, I think that what they compliment is that the boss fights aren't about skill necessarily. That the boss fights have more of a puzzle element to them. Like you need to figure out the mechanic of the boss, and it's not just about taking down a health bar and dodging and blocking or doing whatever. The bosses, I think, in Demon's Souls were more themed. I think I sort of maybe harshly called them gimmick fights. But I think that's in this, a lot of the fights have their own vibe. Whereas I think after this, they moved more towards the bosses. Well, not necessarily, actually. I think Dark Souls still has some of this. I think as you move past, but it didn't have as much of it, I think, Dark Souls. And then when you move into Dark Souls 2, definitely didn't. And Dark Souls 3 definitely didn't. I think Dark Souls 3... Does Dark Souls 3 have one gimmicky boss fight? The giant skeleton thing? Maybe there's one more. But I think as they move through the games, the bosses just become more about the actual physical challenge. And by the time you playing Bloodborne, Does Mikolash count as a I'm saying gimmicky, I just mean like a themed fight. Maybe Mikolash would be categorized as that. Maybe the Witch of Hemwick as well. Yeah. So they always have some boss fights like that, I suppose. But this had more of them. But I didn't find the game too challenging, to be honest. But I was glad that I finally played through this. It was maybe without the multiplayer element in this, maybe it's a bit different. But I think I was so used to playing that tank build that from Elden Ring, I do think it softened the difficulty, that style of build. If I ever play another From Software game on the channel, I am going to do a different build. I think it made it all a bit too easy for me in the end. I do think it is more challenging with a dex build or a sorcery build, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, I did find the final boss fight really challenging, but again, that has its own mechanics as well, where you have to be more prepared for it, to do with the level stealing in that final fight. So that speaks to, I think, what people are trying to say about this, where the bosses are less about the move set and the health bar and the damage, and they're more about, a theme that you need to understand in order to complete the boss fight, I think. And I think that's probably all we need to discuss, because all the others are quite recent, I suppose. Psychonauts, God of War. I know I've not finished Chrono Trigger yet. I will do it. It's just, yeah, I've just had a bit of a rough few months. So, and obviously the Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. Yeah, God of War was great. Weird, because I wasn't sure whether I was expecting it to be a second game when it turned out to be the final game of this this arc of the story. So I was sort of going in it, trying to, in my head, compare it to Horizon Forbidden West a bit. But then once you realise, they are actually drawing this all to a close now. Maybe they had originally intended to do a trilogy, I don't know. But yeah, God of War is great. I am really enjoying Chrono Trigger, but obviously I'm a bit removed from it now, so I'm going to have to go through all the videos again to get re-immersed. And Psychonauts was a great time. It was a great laugh, great nostalgia being from that era. I would have been... can't remember how old I was when it came out. 12 or something? So, from that PS1, PS2 era, gave me those nostalgia feels. But yeah, I really enjoy making videos for this channel. I have to say that. I know I've not been doing it for the past 5 months or whatever, but I really enjoy it. I think that like I said, it's kind of like a book club in some ways. You're just sharing your thoughts on a fiction that you've been through, and getting other people's opinions on it, and capturing your own experience. Obviously, I enjoy capturing mine, and I really enjoy it. I feel like it's a very honest form of sort of content creation in a way. I hate the term content creator and stuff, but so much other stuff is sort of self-serving, I guess, in terms of it's people are trying to make careers out of this stuff. But I feel like this format, yeah, I really enjoy it. I enjoy it as a viewer, and I enjoy doing it myself. I'd like to continue doing it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to Death Stranding 2 coming up now. I've got a few other indies that I want to play as well. But I don't want to overwhelm myself at first, so I might just focus on Death Stranding 2 for a period of time. I'm trying to think what my favourite thumbnails are. Like I said, after we got to like Cloudpunk and I fully committed to doing the themed thumbnails, not all of them are good. Like the Mass Effect ones are terrible. That Sable one was terrible. The Tunic ones weren't great. I've really struggled. The Hades ones were bad, but I quite like doing these. It sort of gets you in the mood for the playthrough. I like the Echo ones, the Cyberpunk ones I enjoyed creating as well. Just because I used like some of the artwork that you get in the pre-order, or I can't remember if you just get it in every version from the gangs. So I liked doing the unique ones for them. Really enjoyed that. The ones that I like the most would probably be the Plague Tale Requiem thing, because I like the background. Yeah, you guys let me know. Are these thumbnails just crap? Should I just do the generic head cut out thing that I did at the beginning? I hate it. There's only so many times you can cut out your own head from a screenshot. It's demoralizing to cut out your own bald head over and over again. Anyway, guys, this video is going to be way too long. Hopefully the cut down version is a bit shorter, but we'll see. Yeah, Death Stranding 2 coming up. I hope I will be a consistent uploader and you'll join me for that playthrough. I've really enjoyed having this channel, creating a small audience, I guess, sharing these experiences in some really awesome games. Some games I didn't like so much, but most I think I picked games that I got along with, that hopefully maybe I added something to for you as a viewer, and I definitely got something from discussions with you. And some really emotional moments throughout all these games, and it's nice to reflect upon some of them, right? Right, guys, that's been a little reflection on, what has it been, 5 years doing Let's Plays? Mad, absolutely mad. Thanks for joining me, man. I really enjoy doing this, and I'd like to continue doing it, so I hope you join me for more videos, more games, and I'll see you next time. And just remember, never trust an uncrate. I'll see you next time.